The results are in, and America has spoken. A July 2025 YouGov poll asked thousands of Americans to name the foods they absolutely can't stand. And the answers reveal the ingredients that make people physically recoil and the dishes that clear dinner tables faster than a fire alarm. But many of America's most hated foods are actually trendy superfoods, cultural delicacies, or nutritional powerhouses that we've been programmed to avoid. Some are having major comebacks, while others remain as polarizing as ever. So today we're ranking America's 10 most hated foods, from the absolute worst to the surprisingly redeemable. Like, subscribe, and prepare to defend your food opinions in the comments. We kick off the list with America's most hated leafy green, kale. It became the poster child for everything wrong with the 2010s health food craze. Kale hatred is partly genetic. Many Americans have a sensitivity to bitter compounds that makes kale taste extra harsh and unpalatable. But the real hatred comes from kale being overhyped as a miracle superfood, showing up in everything from smoothies to chips to salads that cost $18. The irony is that kale actually deserves some of the hype. It's packed with vitamins K, A, and C, plus antioxidants and fiber that make it one of the healthiest leafy greens available. Brands like Sushi Juice and Daily Harvest have built entire businesses around kale's nutritional profile. Kale was once just garnish at salad bars until celebrity chefs like Gwyneth Paltrow and trendy NYC restaurants turned it into the star ingredient. Whole Foods reported a 260% increase in kale sales during the height of the trend, proving that marketing can make people eat almost anything. The problem is that raw kale is genuinely tough and bitter. When properly massaged with salt and acid, or cooked until tender, kale transforms into something actually edible. America's kale hatred is really hatred of poorly prepared kale served by people who cared more about being healthy than being delicious. Beets claim number 9 as the vegetable that tastes like dirt to way too many Americans. The dirt-like flavor that people complain about is actually a compound called geosmin, which is also found in soil. Some people are more sensitive to it than others, making beets taste literally like eating dirt. Add in the deep red color that stains everything it touches, and you've got a vegetable that's hard to love. Most Americans' beet experience comes from canned beets in school lunches. Mushy, bland, and sitting in metallic-tasting liquid that enhanced all the worst qualities while eliminating any redeeming ones. But beets are having a moment among health-conscious consumers. They're rich in folate, antioxidants, and natural nitrates that improve blood flow and stamina. That's why beet juice has become popular with endurance athletes. Beet It juice shots are marketed specifically to runners and cyclists. Beets were once a fixture in Eastern European diets and old-school American salads. Now they're making a comeback in farm-to-table restaurants where chefs know how to prepare them properly. Sweet green and tender greens regularly feature beet salads, proving that when prepared right, beets can be trendy and delicious. The key is roasting them until sweet and tender, then pairing them with goat cheese, nuts, and vinaigrette that complements rather than fights their earthy flavor. Chitterlings land at number 8, but unless you're from the South, you probably don't even know what these are. Yet they still made America's most hated foods list. Made from pig intestines, chitterlings require extensive cleaning and long cooking times. Plus, they have a strong smell that can fill an entire house. For most Americans, the idea of eating intestines is off-putting enough without adding the preparation challenges and distinctive aroma. But chitterlings are a beloved soul food dish with deep cultural significance in African American cuisine. When prepared properly by someone who knows what they're doing, they're high in protein and represent an important connection to cultural heritage and family traditions. Chitterlings were common in the rural South and among poorer families in the 19th and 20th centuries when using every part of the animal, was necessary for survival. Today, they're still featured at Southern food institutions like Busy Bee Cafe in Atlanta and remain important in holiday meals for many Black families. The hatred comes from cultural unfamiliarity and the strong smell during preparation. For families who grew up with chitterlings, they represent comfort, tradition, and connection to ancestors. For everyone else, they represent everything that seems wrong about eating organ meat. Chitterlings rank this low because they're genuinely challenging to prepare and acquire a taste that most Americans will never develop. But they deserve respect as an important cultural food with deep historical significance. Sushi earns number 7, proving that America's relationship with raw fish is still complicated despite sushi's mainstream success. The hatred comes from fear of raw fish, unfamiliarity with seaweed textures, and strong flavors that seem foreign to American palates. Older Americans in particular still find sushi weird or unsafe, associating raw fish with food poisoning rather than culinary sophistication. But sushi is one of the healthiest fast food meals available. Lean protein, omega-3 fatty acids, and often vegetables wrapped in nutrient-rich seaweed. It's also immensely popular with younger generations who grew up with sushi as normal rather than exotic. In the 1970s, sushi was viewed as gross and dangerous by most Americans. Now it's mainstream enough that supermarkets have sushi counters and Costco sells sushi platters for parties. Chains like Kura Revolving Sushi Bar and Sugarfish thrive in U.S. cities, proving that sushi has found its American audience. The transformation shows how quickly food attitudes can change. What was once considered disgusting is now considered sophisticated, healthy, and trendy. Sushi's rise from hated to beloved proves that cultural exposure and generational change can overcome even strong food prejudices. Sushi ranks in the middle because while many Americans still hate it, an equal number love it, and it's clearly won the cultural war for acceptance. Blue cheese claims number 6 as the moldy cheese that people either love passionately or hate with equal intensity. The hatred is understandable. Blue cheese looks moldy because it literally is moldy, with blue-green veins of penicillium cultures running through it. The smell is pungent and funky, often described as smelling like feet, and the flavor is intensely salty and sharp. But blue cheese is a gourmet ingredient that's prized in fine dining and featured on charcuterie boards, Buffalo Wild Wings blue cheese dip, and wedge salads at steakhouses. It's also high in calcium and probiotics that are good for gut health. Traditional varieties like Roquefort, Stilton, and Gorgonzola have centuries of heritage and represent some of the world's most sophisticated cheese-making techniques. While polarizing, blue cheese is featured at high-end restaurants like Peter Luger Steakhouse in New York, where their wedge salad with blue cheese crumbles is legendary. The hatred versus love divide is almost perfectly split, which is why blue cheese ranks in the middle. It's not universally hated like liver or anchovies, but it's definitely not for everyone. Blue cheese represents acquired taste at its most extreme. People who love it really love it, and people who hate it really hate it. Blue cheese succeeds because it doesn't try to appeal to everyone. It knows what it is and delivers intense flavor for those brave enough to appreciate it. Oysters shuck the top 5 as the slimy shellfish that represents luxury to some and horror to others. The hatred comes from texture. Oysters are slippery, slimy, and eaten raw while still technically alive. The briny taste is intensely oceanic, and the whole experience feels more like a dare than a meal to many Americans. But oysters are high in zinc, protein, and vitamins. Plus, they're considered an aphrodisiac, though that's probably just the zinc talking. Foodies absolutely adore them, and oyster bars are trendy again in major cities. Island Creek Oysters in Boston and Hog Island oyster cummered in San Francisco have cult followings among seafood lovers. Oysters were once cheap street food in the 19th century, sold for pennies from pushcarts in New York and other coastal cities. Today, they're a luxury item. Half-dozen plates run $18 plus at upscale restaurants, representing one of the most dramatic food transformations in American history. The turnaround from poor man's food to luxury appetizer is striking and shows how scarcity and marketing can completely change a food's perception. Oysters went from being so common that they were used as bar snacks to being special occasion splurges. Oysters rank in the middle because while many people hate them, they have passionate defenders and represent sophisticated dining to those who appreciate them. Caviar lands at number 4 as the ultimate luxury food that nearly half of Americans find completely unappealing. But in all honesty, most of them have probably never even tried it. The hatred comes from texture. Caviar is essentially slimy fish eggs that pop in your mouth with an intensely salty, briny flavor. The whole concept feels gross to many Americans, and the luxury elitism stigma makes people resistant to even trying it. But caviar is considered one of the most luxurious foods in the world, with beluga sturgeon caviar costing $3,000 to $10,000 per pound. It's also rich in omega-3 fatty acids and protein, though you'd need to eat a lot to get significant nutritional benefits. Top restaurants like Per Se in NYC and French Laundry in Napa showcase caviar as the height of fine dining, serving it with blinis, crème fraîche, and champagne in presentations that cost more than most people's entire meals. The hatred versus luxury status creates an interesting paradox. Nearly half of Americans dislike something that represents the pinnacle of culinary sophistication to chefs and food critics. Caviar represents the ultimate acquired taste that most people will never acquire. Caviar ranks this high because while many people hate it, it has undeniable cultural cachet and represents genuine luxury rather than just weird food. The hatred is understandable, but so is the reverence from those who appreciate it. Surprisingly to us, squid claims number 3 as the seafood that's rubbery when overcooked and alien-looking when properly prepared. Once again, the hatred stems from texture issues. Squid becomes rubber-like when overcooked, which happens frequently at restaurants that don't know proper technique. The appearance is also off-putting, with tentacles and suction cups that remind people they're eating a sea creature. But squid is low in calories, high in protein, and incredibly versatile when prepared correctly. Fried calamari is actually one of the most popular appetizers in American restaurants, appearing on menus at Olive Garden, Red Lobster, and countless Italian-American restaurants. The popularity of calamari proves that Americans can love squid when it's prepared properly, lightly battered, quickly fried, and served with marinara sauce. The problem is that most people's squid experience comes from overcooked, rubbery versions that bear no resemblance to properly prepared calamari. Squid exploded in popularity in the 1990s as calamari became a mainstream appetizer. Despite that success, raw or grilled squid preparations remain divisive because they showcase the ingredient's natural texture and appearance. Squid ranks high on the hate list because while calamari is popular, most other squid preparations remain challenging for American palates. It's a food that succeeds in one specific preparation, but fails in most others. Liver earns number 2 with 54% of Americans disliking or hating it, the most intense hatred of any food on this list. The hatred is visceral and immediate. Liver has a metallic taste, dense texture, and bad childhood memories of liver and onions being forced on reluctant kids. The flavor is intensely mineral and unlike any other meat, making it genuinely challenging even for adventurous eaters. But liver is one of the most nutrient-dense foods on Earth, loaded with vitamins A, B12, and iron in concentrations that make it a literal superfood by nutritional standards. It's also sustainable and represents nose-to-tail eating that reduces food waste. Liver and onions was a common dinner in mid-20th century America, especially during the Depression when nothing was wasted and organ meats were affordable protein sources. Today, offal, the culinary term for organ meats like liver, kidneys, and heart, has fallen out of favor in American home cooking, though high-end restaurants are reviving it. Modern gastropubs and nose-to-tail restaurants serve liver as pâté, foie gras, or terrines that mask the intense flavor while showcasing the nutritional benefits. Restaurants like St. John in London have built reputations on organ meat preparations that make liver appealing to adventurous diners. Liver ranks second because the hatred is genuine and widespread, but it has undeniable nutritional benefits and cultural significance that keep it from being completely worthless. Taking the #1 spot as America's most hated food are anchovies, with 56% of Americans expressing dislike or hatred for these tiny, intensely flavored fish. The hatred comes from their overwhelming saltiness, fishy flavor, and association with ruined pizzas. Anchovies are intensely flavored in a way that dominates everything they touch, and their strong smell makes them off-putting before you even taste them. But anchovies are omega-3 powerhouses, rich in protein and calcium, and they're secretly everywhere in American cuisine. They're dissolved into Caesar salad dressing, Worcestershire sauce, and gourmet pasta sauces, providing umami depth that most people don't even realize they're tasting. While America hates them, anchovies are beloved in Mediterranean cooking and represent authentic flavors that have sustained coastal cultures for centuries. The US is actually seeing a tinned fish boom, with brands like Fishwife and Patagonia Provisions selling trendy anchovy and sardine tins to hipster food lovers. Anchovies went from pizza punchline to Brooklyn wine bar snack, proving that even the most hated foods can find their audience when presented properly. High-end restaurants use anchovy paste and whole anchovies to add depth to dishes without announcing their presence. The transformation from most hated to secretly trendy shows that food hatred often comes from bad experiences rather than inherent problems with the ingredient. When anchovies are used properly as a seasoning rather than a topping, they enhance rather than overpower other flavors. Anchovies earn the top spot because they're genuinely challenging for most American palates, but they're also incredibly useful and nutritious when used correctly. They represent the ultimate acquired taste that most people will never acquire, but those who do discover a powerful culinary tool. There you have it. Anchovies take the crown as America's most hated food, followed by liver and squid in a ranking that reveals as much about American food culture as it does about these specific ingredients. The pattern is clear. Americans hate bold flavors, organ meats, bitter greens, and anything that challenges conventional ideas about what food should look, smell, and taste like. But many of these hated foods are also the most nutritious, culturally significant, or culinarily useful ingredients available. What's interesting is that many of these hated foods are beloved in other cultures or were popular in America's past. The hatred often comes from bad preparation, cultural unfamiliarity, or childhood trauma, rather than inherent problems with the ingredients themselves. The real lesson here is that food hatred is often about context, preparation, and cultural programming rather than actual taste. Give any of these foods to a skilled chef who knows how to prepare them properly, and suddenly, America's most hated ingredients become the secret weapons of fine dining. What do you think? Are you brave enough to try any of these hated foods, or do some prejudices run too deep to overcome? Let me know in the comments. Until next time.